From deep within our hidden volcano laboratory, a podcast about gaming from the people who bring your games to life. These are your core elements. Core Elements, episode 63, recorded on June 5th, 2014. I am Wes Wilson, and once again, Spencer is too busy to join us. He's in the process of a move, so we have no co-host, but instead I have Matt Morkarski and Mike Donatelli from Carbine Studios, makers of Wildstar, and they are here to share this wonderful environment with us.
How's it going?
Hello.
Hello, world.
And we have them on a wonderful, comfy couch, and I've decided that in my next studio, that is where I will do all my podcasting, is a comfy couch.
This is my couch.
Mike's couch. We brought it in last weekend.
I brought it in for the day we launched so I could sleep on it.
Really?
Yes.
Do you get away with that?
Get away with what?
With sleeping?
Sitting at the office? This is the third couch I brought in here. I brought in a couch that I brought in a futon I gave to Sean Craig, our engineering director, because I knew he was going to be sleeping here a lot.
I just slept on the floor for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I have stated on this show many times that I am a little bit MMO'd out, but of all the MMOs that I was expressing interest in that were coming out, Wildstar is the one that I kept telling everybody to keep their eyes on. Why don't you tell people a little bit about your game that makes it unique in the environment?
Well, thank you. I think the first thing we did, we decided we wanted to start with kind of a familiar set. The setting is interesting. It's sci-fi, definitely. It's kind of like sci-fi Western style to it, but we definitely decided to start with something that was familiar, right? Our quest system is familiar to players, right? We didn't want to reinvent the wheel for the sake of reinventing the wheel. And then we just took all the things we liked about MMOs and just tried to, improve on them to a point where we were having a good time playing.
Yeah, and from the beginning, we knew we wanted to go stylized. It was just kind of ingrained in the team. A lot of us came from WoW. I've never worked on a game that was a photorealistic game. Just as an artist, we like comic books, we like animation, and that's the thing that really appeals to us from an artistic standpoint. And then, we started developing the game, and then what came out was, the team's kind of a rowdy bunch of guys that were always busting balls and everything, and that started to make its way into the game. And then we looked at it, we're like, you know what, this is something very unique for the industry in terms of MMOs. Like, nobody just kind of has humor or has fun, like and other games have it, like TF2 or like Borderlands and stuff like that, and you never see it in MMOs. MMOs are really always super heavy-handed, dramatic. Like, WoW has a little bit of humor, but even when you look at their marketing, what they're putting out there, it's all the end of the world demon coming out of the sky type thing. And we're like, you know what? Let's do something where these characters have personality and actually joke around. And
it was at the beginning, like when I got here, it was a little more tame, right? It was kind of serious, and we had press. We had the same old combat that every MMO has dumped out for the last 10 years of press 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just did that over and over again, and none of us were happy with it.
Yeah,
nobody was thrilled to death by any of that.
Yeah, I think I think you talked about this before we started the show, but there was definitely that. How far can you go before you're completely alienating all MMO players out there, right? We wanted to have that same leap that, Warcraft did from EverQuest.
Yeah.
We started with the fundamentals, and then we just said, okay, how can we make this better? What's wrong with this? What do we want to do? And that's how everything kind of evolved over time. It didn't start with a singular vision that we knew we wanted to do A, B, C, D, and E, and we just did that from the beginning, and it all worked out great. No, we did a lot of iteration, and you know, people ask us why this game took so long, and it was because we were given the freedom to say, okay, combat's not working, let's scrap it. And we did that 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We started from scratch because it just wasn't working.
Yeah, and we had a giant chunk of the game done, and we went back and we said, okay, we could dump this out. But we all thought the same thing. We all said, yeah, this is kind of just like a WoW clone. Yeah. We dumped it out 3 years ago. That's what it was.
I think MMOs are unique in that, well, not just MMOs, but games that are kind of a living, breathing thing outside of just putting it in a box, selling it for $60, and then, you know, what you get is what you get. In that, if you don't make it sticky or you don't make it good, and you just say, oh well, we'll just, time's up, let's put it out, then you're probably not going to succeed. You're probably going to get your box sales and move on to the next thing. But you know, we want this thing to live for like 10 years plus, you know, and it's just like, when you do that, you have to make the hard call as a company. Okay, what is wrong with the game? How can we make it better? How can we have to succeed years from now. We can't just worry about, you know, the first few weeks.
Was there a decision to break? I mean, was there a point in time where you said, okay, let's break down the fourth wall. Let's start talking to the player.
I'll cover that because that was mainly because of me, I think. Oh,
hey, come on, Frost, we're on TV.
Standing in Frost, we're live. There you go.
We're talking about E3 and stuff, right?
Well, yeah, we're supposed to do an E3 presentation, technically.
Yeah, I'll head over there as soon as we're done here.
Hi!
Thanks, buddy.
There you go. See, folks, not staged. We're actually in Mike's office here, and who knows who else is going to walk in.
I should have put a sign in the door, honestly. I apologize.
Yeah, so the fourth wall thing, you know, we started adding humor with the characters and some of that. And you know, we're not like, oh, let's have everything in the game be a joke. But more like, I always compare it to Die Hard, where it's like, if you strip out Bruce Willis joking around, it's actually a very serious situation of terrorism and hostages and people dying left and right. But then you add, you know, John McClane into that, and he's kind of cracking jokes, but the guy still gets hurt. He's walking on glass. You actually feel for him, and we kind of wanted that feeling, right? That it's not that the situation is lighthearted or not dangerous. It's that the characters in it kind of have this personality, and what happens when you put those characters in these dire situations. But with the fourth wall thing, I think it just came out from number one over everything was to have fun.
Yeah.
To have fun with the game, right? And there were certain things that we felt we shouldn't bother explaining to the player, whether it's a exclamation point above people's heads or a challenge to kill, you know, so many creatures within 2 minutes, or, you know, leveling up your character and spending your points. These things are hard to really sell as this is the living world, like this stuff happens for real. Like for a long time, we were like, what's the lore behind rezzing? You know, and we tried to write this whole backstory of it, where the Elden created the device, but we're like, well, what if we're not on Nexus? You know, what happens then? And it just started getting really convoluted, and we're like, you know what? There's certain game tropes that people are just going to accept, right? And instead of like just ignoring them, why don't we just have fun with it and address it a little bit, right? And with the double kill or a triple kill, there's games out there that had that, and we were like, that's cool. It kind of feels like it makes it more fun. And then we nailed down this actor named Fred Tatasciore, who does like trailer guy voices and everything, and he's just a wacky character, right? And he kept going off, and it really resonated with the team, and we're like, let's get this guy in the game as much as possible. And it just added that level of fun. And as soon as we started breaking that fourth wall, we're like, yeah, this is our game. This is completely unique. No one's ever done this before in the MMO.
Hey, can I curse for a second?
Yeah.
So make sure, man. If you said no, I was going to respect it. But no, a long time ago, we decided, I've been quoted on it, but not a long time, where if it's not fun, fuck it. We're just not going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned, Die Hard, right? And what I look at it is, and maybe people remember, you remember a show called Firefly, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's this episode where they have to rob a train for medicine for the town, right? It's your absolute run-of-the-mill quest, right?
Right.
And at the end of it, there's some guys that chase them, and they owe some money to somebody, and these guys want something from them, and the guys from Firefly, he talks to them and goes, "You got to go back and tell your guy to back off." And the guy says no, and he literally just puts his foot on him and kicks him into the moving engine of the spaceship, and the guy gets churned out the other side. Right. Then they pull another guy up and plop him down. They go, "So, are you going to go back?" He's like, "Yep, right now I'm going to go back." And it was when you think about it, when you take the comedy out of it, you're like, "Oh my God, that was horrible," but you laughed out loud, right? And it was super fun. And you try to take that, and yeah, it can't always be serious, but we have some serious stuff in the game for sure.
Yeah, we definitely had some serious stuff. But,
not that you've seen a lot of it, or we talked.
Yeah, like toward the end of the game, it gets a little more dark. Definitely, the universe is under threat, and you have to do your part to help save it. And we have a thing, and again, Wes, if we're going off on a tangent,
no, it's fine. This is the stuff that people like. They want to hear candid conversations.
So one of the things that we did was we put together this timeline, not a timeline, but a graph of completely, batshit goofy, crazy, fun stuff, and super serious. And every element of the game, like the Elden, you never joke about, the Elden never joke around, right? Never make anything funny about the Elden. So they're on one end of the spectrum. And then you have like Protostar or Locke, where it's like, you never want to do serious with Protostar. So we put together this guideline of every single thing in our game to give to the team, so they understood, hey, never make a joke with these guys, or these guys are kind of funny, but they're funny in this manner. And then if you don't do funny with these guys, why are you bothering using them? Don't even use them. So we have a broad range throughout the game, and it's actually fairly scientific.
Yeah. Well, that's an whole interesting topic. I mean, how did you ever consult comedians? Did you look for professional comedy present? I mean, because that's something to think about if you're going to be analyzing how you're doing comedy. What was your science behind it?
Our science is that not everybody can be funny, so yes. Don't try to be funny.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people making content and making quests, and sometimes people would think a vomiting quest is hilarious, and we're like, that's not funny. So we try to identify where that personality is going to come from, right? And that is primarily me, Chad Moore, and Mike kind of sit as this triumvirate over everybody and just say, no, that's not funny. But then you might find somebody on the team that hits that right tone, and you're like, okay, you're cleared to do comedy. Yes. And then and it's interesting because even with the trailers, when we write the flicks, it's only written by three of us. And we argue about what is funny and what isn't funny, and what the comic timing of it needs to be, and but no, we didn't. We've never hired a comedian. We actually don't even hire people based upon that. No. It kind of evolved, and one of the big problems we had early on was people thought comedy was parody.
Yeah.
Where it was I'm gonna parody,
Indiana Jones.
Sure. Not even Indiana Jones, like Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be funny if we had, The Situation and, JWoww and Snooki, and we're like, absolutely not. Like, that isn't funny. It's funny for maybe an audience, but if that audience doesn't know about these pop culture icons.
Yeah.
So really early in the process, we said, don't do pop culture, because that not only is it not funny, it actually dates you. You know, like if we did a quest line that was Jersey Shore that we put it in 3 years ago, now Jersey Shore isn't really a thing anymore. And we just released, and people are going to be like, "Oh, really? They're talking about."
What was the comparison between the two movies?
It's Pixar versus DreamWorks. For a long time, DreamWorks was the pop culture, jokey
Shrek,
type thing, and Pixar is more timeless because their comedy it's their own. Mm-hmm. It's not you don't need a point of reference to get the joke, and we took that stance. Now, for all you DreamWorks people out there, they've actually gotten a lot better at it. DreamWorks is actually kicking butt right now.
I like Shrek. I thought it was funny, but you're right. It's two different styles.
Like if you look back at the first Scary Movie spoof, you're going to roll your eyes of all the things that they made fun of.
Yeah.
So.
Well, okay. I think it is time for us to move on a little bit. So we will talk some more about Wildstar and what you guys do. But first... Eureka! Ow! So just because everybody should know, I have now become a Loot Crate affiliate. Ta-da! And they're sending me Loot Crates every month. And you too can join it as well. It is less than $15 a month, and you get little nerdy swag sent to you every month. I got Ari from Game of Thrones, and I got a cute little Nord guy who you can take off his helmet, and I got a Link T-shirt, and I got all kinds of great little stuff sent to me each month. I have made a video of the first unboxing that I did. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can go to youtube.com/Wes Wilson, see me and my daughter, who is a hoot, and some family friends while I unbox my first couple of Loot Crates. But if you are interested in getting a Loot Crate as well as supporting the show, you can go to lootcrate.com/Wes Wilson and get your own Loot Crate sent to you each month, and I recommend it. It is a lot of fun, and you get all kinds of weird little things that you can use to decorate your desk, and it makes me very happy. So go to lootcrate.com/Wes Wilson and check that out. In the news this week, we have some interesting stuff going on. First off, former Steam boss Jason Holtzman has joined the Oculus VR team. Now, this is kind of interesting. Now, he wasn't with Steam when he went in, but what's kind of interesting about this is that Facebook, who bought Oculus, has been pulling in all these crazy people that are very, very active in video gaming to help them work on this. And it's actually become a bit of a star-studded cast, including John Carmack, Michael Abrash, Atman Binstock, Aaron Nichols, Tom Forsyth. It's getting kind of crazy, and it makes me wonder what's going to happen here. Do you think Facebook might actually be doing something good with the Oculus?
Well, I think it's cool that all these guys, like I said, a lot of notables are going and doing stuff. My only issue is, I've been in the industry for a while. You get a lot of chefs in the kitchen. You're going to have an interesting...
Personally, I think Oculus is the next big thing. I hope people embrace it and not like the Kinect, just kind of dismiss it.
I talked to my Kinect
because they just stopped requiring Kinect for Xbox One, right? And I think that Oculus is going to go a lot of places that people don't expect. Obviously, games is a no-brainer, right? Because it's just that VR. Get into a world type thing, but So I think Oculus or the VR thing, I think Valve has just showed off their thing, like a behind the scenes or something like that. But I think everybody knows that is the next big thing. I don't think it's going to for everything. I don't think all of us are going to be playing games that way. I think it's just going to be another, option like your iPhone or your iPad or, but I think Mike is right. Just because you have the all-star team like the Lakers, right, doesn't necessarily mean that good things are going to come out of it.
Well, it depends on whose vision, right? Like, that's the thing, is if you're just assembling this giant team so that your stock price goes up, but if there's somebody on the team that they've designated as you're the guy, right, then I think it'll be fine.
But I mean, I think the real question is are they all working on the same thing, or are there 10 projects trying to hit different areas, right? Like, I don't think there's going to be a big announcement that is the one thing that pushes it over. I think there's going to be a lot of little things that happen, and it's going to slowly grow up. I would imagine, Facebook has all the money in the world, so they can gobble up whoever they want, but I would imagine it's more that these guys have specific ideas that they pitched, and Facebook and Oculus are really interested in those particular ideas.
Does it make you optimistic at all? I mean, there was a lot of pessimism around the Facebook purchase.
I'm a little jaded when it comes to big names. I mean, not that those guys don't deserve their credit, but we usually see it with the movie industry, like when someone's like, oh my God, Spielberg or Peter Jackson or Guillermo del Toro, they signed on a game and they're making a game. I'm like, those games are doomed. Or worse yet, those directors will get bored because game development is difficult, and they don't realize that you can't make a game in a year, but you can make a movie in a year. I think that is weird to me. Same thing with voice acting, right? Like pulling in like Morgan Freeman or Snoop Dogg or something into your game. I think that those are just kind of like a cheap way to try to get more attention. Yeah. And it doesn't actually add to the quality of the game, right? We work with high-end voice actors. Like one of our Grad is and they're fantastic, but that's what they do. They do voice acting and they know games. So I think I was amazed at some of the quality of our voice acting, and we didn't always go for the top guys, right? And we didn't say, hey, we need Kevin Spacey to be this character because he's Kevin Spacey. We said, here's who this character should be. Let's do it. But back to, so I'm a little bit more skeptical about, just because you get a big name, that means that they're going to do well, right? There might be somebody who becomes a big name because they have a great idea for the Oculus and they run with it, right? I think these guys all built their names based on other things, and I don't necessarily think that applying a big name to a product means it's going to do well.
I'm worried about the medium only because I remember 4 years ago people telling me, okay, 3D TV is the next game platform. Everything is going to be, and it just doesn't turn out that way. And I think as far as Facebook picking them up, I think that was actually a good idea for Facebook because Facebook's not going to be around like in this iteration and forever, and to start looking into that next gen of the future of how we are going to interact with media, I think that was a really smart move for them.
Right.
Well, okay. Moving on, I saw a message that Watch Dogs had sold 4 million copies in its first week, and it is currently on it needs 2 million more copies to beat out Ubisoft's expectation of its lifetime sales, but still, and that's the mark that Assassin's Creed sold, but it also is and pardon me, I lost my train of thought for a second there. But it's now the best-selling game of all time in terms of its first week sales. I've heard a little bit of mixed reviews on the PC version of it, but everybody I know that's been playing it has been having a good time with it. Have you guys been able to poke around with it at all?
No,
No, not at all.
I believe it or not, I don't have a next gen console yet. There's so many great games I have a PS3 and a 360, and I'm still churning through that stuff. There are so many good games out there. Watch Dogs was one of the ones that I contemplated, hey, maybe I'll pick up a PS4 when it comes out. But, I personally, I've read the reviews and word of mouth is people are like, it's good, but, it takes some time. It's not for everybody. And I think that's delayed my purchase of it.
Yeah, I've heard pretty, I've heard pretty good reviews. No one's like, oh man, it's the next thing. But that's the thing is I probably will buy it because I'm a giant Ubisoft fanboy. Every Assassin's Creed, I love Far Cry, all the stuff. So if this is in that same vein, which I imagine it will, I'll definitely pick it up and play it. But I have an Xbox One that I bought because of Thief, and we will not talk about that. Will not talk about that. And I still want to talk about it, but I will not. And but I picked up instead. I picked up Wolfenstein just because I was on the way home and I picked it up. I blew it out in 2 days straight. Awesome game.
The thing I really want to know about Watch Dogs is I love the Assassin's Creed series, but the first game was the first game. It had the parkour stuff, which was very cool. Visually, it was beautiful, but the combat wasn't quite there yet, and the storyline wasn't quite there yet. And then 2 came out, and 2 felt like, okay, this is what they really wanted to do with 1. And I think you get that a lot. The same thing with Uncharted, right? Like 1 was okay, but 2 was one of the greatest games I've ever played. And I'm wondering with Watch Dogs, because it's a new title, a new IP and everything, if they're really going to refine that with 2, and whether 1 is something that you need to play. Same thing with Mass Effect. I never played 1, but I played 2 because everybody told me 2 is the one you got to play. So sometimes I feel like games are rushed out to get it out there, and they don't have all the time to put that extra polish on. Sometimes not though. Sometimes the first game is usually the best.
Well, that's funny though. The Watch Dogs. So yeah, I do intend to purchase it. So yeah, I'm sure I'm one of many. So I'm sure it'll be the best selling game of all time. But what you're saying about polish, again, that's in our boat for Wildstar. We sit here and we're bugging out every day. I'm like, oh my God, did you see that? Oh my God, did you see that thing in the game? And we hear all this stuff back on, you guys are really, really polished. Yeah. And we're all terrified. We're like, no, we're not. There's all these things we have to fix.
I'm playing the game. I'm going, oh my God, I didn't know this was in the game still. And everybody's like, no one's complaining. And I was like, no, we got to fix it. We got to fix it. So you're saying Watch Dogs is now the most successful or the quickest selling game of all time?
Yep.
I had not heard.
Really?
Yep.
More so than Call of Duty or anything like that?
It says here that Ubisoft says Watch Dogs. Oh, pardon me. It's now Ubisoft's best-selling game of all time. Okay, I misread it.
Like GTA and Call of Duty. And,
yeah. Okay, sorry, audience. That was a misread on my part.
Still, congratulations, Ubisoft.
Yep.
That's freaking awesome.
I absolutely agree with you. The 2 games you mentioned, Uncharted and Assassin's Creed, I feel exactly the same way. I played both the first games. They were okay. I had a good time with them, but 2 is where they hit stride. I'm still working my way through Assassin's Creed. I'm in Revelations right now, but we kind of did our sections out of order this week, so I didn't get to talk about it. So we're going to talk about what games we're playing in a minute.
Right.
But next, and I'm mostly going to link to this, although if you guys have any opinions on it, I kind of wanted to talk about it. There was an article out in The Guardian that was talking about the World of Darkness MMO and how it got canceled by CCP. And it goes into kind of lurid detail about the kinds of failures that were going on within that company and within the game design process for that product. And it appears they went through a lot of the things that all MMOs go through. You know, the decision to take a piece of it and completely start from scratch again. For, you know, a director looking over the shoulder and going, I think this thing you cobbled together needs to be better, you know?
Yeah, that sounds like every day here.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like it's kind of heartbreaking because down in I played Vampire when it first came out. I did my LARPing in my youth. I ran my live action games. There's a piece of me that will always love World of Darkness and was kind of excited about the idea of an MMO. And then the whole Vampire the Masquerade game has such a great cult following. It seems like, you know, catering to a small cult following, but attempting to reach a bigger audience might have a real success. I like the idea of CCP succeeding in more than just Eve. There was so much here that when it collapsed, I was kind of like, oh no, this is kind of bad. Have you guys like been exposed to that whole collapse and have any perspective on it?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, were you a werewolf? Because by looking at you, I think you had a little of that vibe. Is that when you?
No. I was old school. Like before the first, I played Vampire within a few weeks of the book coming out. And then when Werewolf came out, by then I was like, that's just a vampire knockoff. But I did get back into it with Mage, and then I did play one Wraith adventure at some point in time. So I've dabbled in it the whole time. And actually, I ran Vampire live action roleplay before there was a solid system for it. Yeah, I'm old.
So I think to answer your question, and this doesn't necessarily touch on just the World of Darkness game, but we've seen tons of MMO developers being shut down, right? Like we said, 38. We picked up like so many people from 38 on Copernicus, because not only because they looked like a quality MMO, but because the art style was very close to what we were doing. And then, there's Vampire, there's Vigil, the 40K.
I wanted to play that
MMO,
more than anything else.
right? Like I'm friends with Joe, Matt, and knew a lot of people on that team. And I think it sounds insane considering we just launched an MMO. But it is, in my opinion, one of the riskiest ventures you could do, right? In terms of the expectations now. Like, I worked on the original WoW, and we didn't even launch with PvP Battlegrounds. And people don't remember that now. Yeah. But now if you launch without PvP Battlegrounds, you're like...
Oh, they'll turn you...
Yeah, and like, the number of zones, the number of raids, all that stuff, like... You're competing with games that have had, 10, 15, 20 years worth of content and features and everything. And it's absolutely insane. Like the amount that you have to do. Not only that, but if you don't make a good game, there's no, like, you can't sustain that, right? Like you've seen so many games that have either gone free to play within a few, or like half a year, or shut down the studio, or what have you. It is absolutely heartbreaking, and it's terrifying, right? Like, we've picked up so many people from all different realms of MMOs, both shipped and not shipped, and it's such a specialized skill set for both design and engineer and art that it's really quite sad. It's kind of like, you know what I related to? It was like the stop motion animation industry. I actually worked in the stop motion industry as a storyboard artist. And eventually, the company I worked for, which at the time was Will Vinton Studios, any stop motion animator in the world eventually like just kind of came into this one company because they were the only people that did it and made money. And you kind of see that because you can't do like these are big games. You just can't go small, or you have to just focus on one feature. Then you're not really an MMO. You're just more of a multiplayer game that has a certain feature.
MMOs are. I mean, I don't think I'm not trying to turn. Look, I love console games. I play a ton of console games. I'm not putting anybody down. I know making games is hard, right? But MMOs are the hardest game to make, like period end. One of these MMOs should take anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and just trying to get all these different things going, hundreds of people working at the same time on all, on 300-400 hours worth of content and have it all work is insane.
Well, and that's something to get, like, this is something like I actually am challenged by, because I think that in my heart, I'm a competitive capitalist, and I think that competition does good things. But at the same time, I think there becomes a point with the complexity of goods that the barriers to entry are so high that almost at that point in time, there has to be some kind of nepotistic support from the top to the bottom, which kind of defies the whole competition thing. I feel like it kind of makes me wonder if public domain laws for software shouldn't be more available, so that, should the WoW code be out there so that someone, from 10 years ago, maybe not their last, 3-4 years, but can we create a situation where people don't have to spend 3 years developing an engine so that they can compete with WoW for the kind of creative content?
Well, I think you look at Unreal, right?
Yeah.
The reason why there's so many first-person shooters out there, third-person action games, is because of Unreal, right? Or because of CryEngine or Crytek. Yeah. It's super weird. There are other engines out there developed just for that type of thing that you're talking about, just not for MMOs.
Well,
right?
Unity.
Unity is pretty good,
but it's not.
Like, Unity is now more of the iOS.
Yeah, they have
mobile type thing. They're kind of taking over that market. But at NCSoft did use the CryEngine and used Unreal for other products, and the hurdles that they ran into just because of the open world and the massive size of things, it's just not developed for that. They ran into a lot of issues. There's not hey, here's, an MMO engine for those guys that want to create an MMO.
Like the MMO.
Yeah,
engine.
that you could license for whatever.
I think you're right. I think it'd be neat or interesting to have that tool set out there for everybody to use, kind of, free market. But I think while tools are important, the idea here is, I think because, I played EQ like a lunatic, and then Dark Age Camelot came out, and I played the hell out of it. And I was like, I totally have to work at this company, and I went to work for them. But the issue was, there was such a small group of people making MMOs, and then all of a sudden MMOs blew up because everybody's like, I want a piece of, that.
Wow.
Yeah, WoW.
The WoW money.
And then all of a sudden WoW exploded, and then everybody wanted to make an MMO so they could get a piece of that money. Right. And then the pool of talent just got more and more and more diluted. And it's not, we've done it. I'm not going to name names, but, you'll bring a guy in who's done iPhone apps, or you'll bring a designer in that's done a single player console game, and you'll plop them in, and they don't get it. They don't understand that they're designing for several hundred people. What happens if several hundred people in one place at once, and then pretty much go? And I think that there's a pool of talent that doesn't exist. If you haven't made MMOs, it's going to be tougher for you to just go, I want to make an MMO.
And the tough thing here is you've got to design around the griefers and everything. Yeah. You just have to have this general awareness. And look, it like Mike said, and I'll talk to the audience out there. Any game that's released, even think of the shittiest game, you've ever played. It's a fucking miracle.
Yeah.
Game. I've been in the industry for 15 years, and not one time have I heard a developer go, "Oh no, that game was super easy to make. It went super smooth. Everything went great. We were on time.
Under budget.
Yeah, under budget. Didn't have to crunch. No worries." Not one time in 15 years talking to thousands of developers have I ever heard that situation. It's always about, oh my God, that was a nightmare. Like, it doesn't matter if it was a great game or a terrible game. And maybe it's because we're young and we're stupid. We haven't figured it out yet. But every game I've ever worked on was a completely new challenge. It was like you had to completely relearn your job. And maybe, a lot of that has to do with how quickly technology is moving too, and it is about competition. All of a sudden the game releases and they have a new, graphics feature or a new, cool new AI or something like that. You're like, oh shit, we gotta look into that now.
Yeah.
Well, let's skim over these last two articles real quick. The first one is, I'm just going to link to it in the show notes, and you can find the show notes at coreelementsshow.com. The video game pre-orders are out of control. There's a grid for all the things that you can get if you purchase Watch Dogs, and from whom and on what tier. And it's kind of a crazy thing to look at. And then the last thing is something that has amused me greatly this week, and that is the Luigi death stare videos. These are from Mario Kart 8, and the basic idea is that when Luigi kills someone, he stares at them as he drives by them, and the stare is just brutal, and people keep putting it to gangster rap, and it is hilarious.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna provide a link to that in the show notes. Please go check it out, and then let's move on. Lab notes. So I know I'm doing the sections out of order this time, but I think it's because for some reason I'm not feeling like I'm playing a lot of new stuff. I have played one new game, and that is Lichdom Battle Mage. I've been poking around with that, and the promo for it, we had a couple of Lichdom people on. The promo for it is that, if you play this game, it's not like your typical glass cannon. You will feel like a badass. But I still, it is brutal sometimes, and I still feel like a glass cannon. I'm throwing these huge, devastating spells, but I'm still backpedaling. Somebody's coming at me, and I am attempting to cast spells as quickly as I can at them before they get to me and swing an axe at me. But it is challenging. I find myself when I die, I feel like there's a skill level there that if I just keep playing, I will get better and can succeed at that combat. And I think that's what a lot of these kind of games are missing, is that when you die, you don't feel like, oh, I could skill up here if I just keep trying to do this fight. And I have to say, Battle Mage succeeded at this, and I recommend trying it out. And I like the people who are making it. They're from Atlanta. They're really great people. So check that out. I also have been poking around with Minecraft again. I still have been moderating and running support for the Play Minecraft server, and they just recently came out with an update with several new games designed by Robert Moran and Nissavan. You should go check it out at playminecraft.com. One of them is called Camelot. It's a throwback to the old Dark Age of Camelot thing. There is a castle in the middle. There are 3 teams, and the goal is to hold the castle at the end of the game. Which means that a lot of times it can feel a little nihilistic. You spend a good 15 minutes fighting, and really all that matters is who's standing on it at the very, very end. But the combat is still entertaining, which baffles me a little bit because it's just Minecraft clicky, swing my axe, I hope I kill you thing. And yet I'm still having a really great time with it. I also have started doing, and I've done videos of this. You can check out my channel, youtube.com/Wes Wilson. I've also been poking around with the Crack Pack, which is the new FTB version that's being released with the AT launcher. And I have decided to delve into Thaumcraft, one of the mods for Minecraft. And I'm kind of embarrassing myself at it, but but I am playing it and filming it and putting it out there for people to watch. But I'm amazed with the longevity of Minecraft. I can't get over how sometimes coming back to it feels like coming home, and the moddability of it and the way people can make other games out of it. That's a, kind of goes back to what I'm talking about with the MMO tools. Here is a tool set you can use to make your own games, and that's amazing. Lastly, I bought a bunch of games and they are sitting on my account. I bought Transistor. I'm gonna play that. I swear. I bought Outlast. I'm gonna play that. I swear. And there's a whole huge stack of my Steam backlog that I will touch one day. So how about So how about you, gentlemen? Have you been playing anything that's really caught your eye?
Well, one thing first, because you have people there in chat, I'm curious about. Has anybody played The Forest?
The Forest, yeah.
I'm like this close to buying it on Steam, or it's the alpha, so you can get in early access. It sounds awesome because I got what was the one with all the people with their wangs hanging out? Rust. I bought Rust, and it was kind of cool. It was kind of like a social experiment, I think. But The Forest is more of what I think Rust will maybe eventually evolve into. But I really like the idea of it. But nobody I know has played it.
I don't know.
I saw a video for it and I wanted to pick it up, but I have not done so. But it is on my list of things I want to add to my Steam backlog.
But to answer your question, I'll let Matt go nuts. I'm playing right now is State of Decay Lifeline. I'm a giant State of Decay fan, so again, I like it because kind of like you were saying, is it's not super easy, and you have a guy and you've leveled him up, and he's your best guy, and you just you zig when you should have zagged, and all of a sudden there's a boss tearing your body in half, and then your guy's just dead forever. I kind of like that nihilistic view of games.
It took me a while. Like Mike started. We used to share an office until recently, actually, and Mike would come in every day and go, State of Decay, and I'm like, really? I don't know. Like visual, I'm an artist, so like usually it's like visually, I don't know, it's not quite there. And then it was on sale, and I picked it up. And then every day I was coming here, and I was like, Mike, I'm doing this. And then when my most level up guy died because I went on some stupid quest and got, raped by a horde, I was like, I was completely addicted to that. What everybody needs to understand, though, for us is like about 9 months ago, we were in the thick of it, right? It was like day and night, like even lunchtime, just working over everything, right? And not going home and all that. And so you build up a back catalog during that time, and now we're starting to play that. So I'm playing Bastion right now because I want to play Transistor, and I'm playing it on the iPad because I travel a lot, and that's fantastic. Like the narrator part of that, I want to see that continue. Like it is amazing and it's beautiful. And if I remember correctly, it was like one artist that did all the art for that, which is just absolutely incredible. And then I kind of play like I play a lot of indie stuff, but right now I will say that I picked it up, was super cheap, and I'm playing Transformers War of Cybertron, or Fall of Cybertron. It's not the best game in the world, but man, if you're a Transformers fan, it's just kind of like geekgasm all over the place of being able to play Starscream and Optimus, and like it's one of those guilty pleasures.
Well, I'm still trying to finish The Walking Dead, so when I travel, I have it on my iPad. I had to restart. I had it on the Xbox.
The first one? The first season?
I had it on the Xbox, got, I'd say, about 75% through. Then it came out on the iPad, and I'm like, I'm going to play on the iPad, but you can't. It's not like you can't transfer your games.
Yeah.
So I started it all over again and went all the way through, and I'm not even finished with it still.
Yeah, I played Star Command on
I played FTL's expansion.
Yeah. I don't know, like you just play when you can.
Yeah.
I gotta play it. I gotta play Broken Age. So I was actually a backer for Broken Age, and this shows you how busy I was. I was a backer. The reason I'm in games is because of LucasArts Graphic Adventures and Tim Schafer. and definitely, you know, part of the humor of Wildstar is definitely influenced by those original games. We love those games, and I backed it. I put a ton of money into the game. I was super excited, and I haven't played it yet.
That's not unsurprising. Like I said, I mean, I still have Papers, Please queued up. I need to play Papers. I mean, this is like the pinnacle of like indie coolness is Papers, Please, and I should play it. I should love it. And it's still sitting there. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm trying, I still am trying to be a video game content creator, where I'm putting out video content based on me playing games. And so I have certain games that I kind of am like, I'm not going to play that until I'm ready to film it and make it, you know, be like a product. And yet, I have 3 kids, including a 14-month-old, and so like my ability to find time where there is not a child or a baby making noise in the background is just really not there. So
I think everybody has their own little thing. Like my girlfriend, she goes to bed at 10 o'clock. But like she likes me to hang out in the same room, so that's why I play a lot of iPad games with the headphones on, because like she's sleeping, and that's where I get in a lot of my gaming time. So if something's on the iPad, I always pick it up, as opposed to like on Xbox Live or something.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you a little trick. Okay, so you have a 14-month-old. My son, who's now 6, right? I would always offer, and again, I got brownie points for this. I would always offer to my wife, like, don't worry, you just go to bed. I'll take the baby. The baby's up crying. I'll handle it. And then I would go, I remember this to this day. I would go downstairs when he was an infant, and I'd put him on my shoulder like this, and I'd pat him on the back while sitting down and trying to play Fallout 3 with the Xbox controller in one hand. And that went on for a while. And it's really funny because now to this day, my son will hear like 40s like records that I might have, and I'll be playing that. And he just kind of sits down and stares at it. It's actually kind of cute. But yeah, you get brownie points. Just offer your wife every time. I'll stay up late, honey. I'll do it. Don't worry.
I think to speak to something you were talking about, Wes, is as a game developer, you play stuff, not only like you play the stuff you like, right? But I also feel like it's part of my job.
Yeah.
Where there's certain games I have to check out because I heard of a cool new feature or a new visual effect or, you know, a storyline, and you got to be aware of those things. So that, you know, we'll play a lot of indie stuff, like, you know, Mike played Rust, and you know, whether it's like DayZ or something like that, where you're looking at, okay, what's going to be the next League of Legends out there? Is there a genre that's going to take off all of a sudden that we haven't seen have its spotlight? You know, and what you get a lot more creative ideas from the indie crowd. And then at the same time, you're like, okay, if it's the most popular game out there, like a GTA or like, you know, like you said, Watch Dogs, then you feel like, well, I need to play this just so I know what is popular. So you have to balance that you have to be aware of what's new and innovative and what's coming up. At the same time, you have to be aware of why people are buying these super blockbuster games. And somewhere in the middle, you find what you actually like to play.
Yeah.
And it's a tough balance. Sometimes, like I'll go to Mike and I'll be like, hey, are you playing Assassin's Creed 4? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I don't have to play that one day. So we'll just talk about it, and I'll go play this other game. And you know, we have like, you know, 200 people here that are like that. So, you know, I could if I haven't played Hearthstone, but there's a ton of people playing it, and I know as a developer, I could gather around 5 people that are super into it. I'm going to be like, okay, tell me about it. What's going on with it? You know, why is it addicting? All that stuff. Where's the appeal? And so you have to balance all that stuff, and there's no time on top of that.
Yeah.
You know, because you're working like 10, 12 hours a day.
I think that so what you're doing right now, Wes, is Twitch. I think Twitch is a great tool for that. If I'm here late at night and I'm going through 100 emails on my other monitor, I can have Twitch running and I can watch. I can watch people run I can watch people run a 20-man raid. I can watch in our game. I can watch players playing our game, or I can watch players playing a competitor's game. Just see, where people are like, this sucks. Yeah. And it's like, where does that? What are we doing?
Yeah. Actually, you find that like when I started in the industry, everybody would just put on, iTunes and kind of zone out and do their work. And now what you see is everybody has a playthrough streaming of either old school games or games that just came out, just so they don't have to play and they can have that awareness.
Yeah. Inspiration. Okay, so let me ask you this. Was anybody on your team bold enough to say that Wildstar was going to be a WoW killer? And did you take them out and beat them afterwards?
Man, the WoW killer thing, that kills me. Man, and don't get me wrong, I've seen studios do it. I've seen notable guys come out and say stuff like that. But man, if that's the way you're going to start, if that's the way you're going to design your game, you're like, we're going to come out, we're going to kill WoW. It's like, I think we joke around, right? But I don't think that, like Mike said, there's no business decision or game decision that not that we made.
Right?
Not saying other people
that was like, this is gonna be the thing that destroys our competitor. Of course, everybody's like, wouldn't it be awesome if we were the WoW killer? And, I think it's it's become a meme now in the office because every single press person wants us to say it. They're trying to get it out. They just want that quotable that they can put on a headline, and we're like, no, man, like we that's not how we roll. Like we just worry about making the best game we can. And I know it sounds like bullshit, but it really isn't. Because let's say some other game, let's say Elder Scrolls became the WoW killer. Then are we now the Elder Scrolls killer? You can't develop that way.
Well,
right?
I think that a lot of times what we will talk about. we will talk about WoW, right?
Yeah, we do.
We'll turn around and say, when I played EQ, when you died and you had to go run and find, somebody to come in and help you get your corpse on a corpse run. At the time, it was terrifying and it was new and it was scary. And then Dark Age came out and they said, oh, just pray at this gravestone. You get 10% back, you lose the rest. You're like, oh man, that's pretty awesome. It's like the evolution. Then WoW came out and they're like, hey, we don't think we like this better. We like this. So we will look at WoW and say, I don't want to pick up loot. So we're going to make V for vacuum loop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
we're going to we look at them and we'll say, oh, WoW does this, but we don't want to do that.
And that came from Borderlands. We were like, everybody was playing Borderlands, Loot Pinata, and Vacuum was like, it was half Borderlands, half Ratchet and Clank, and we're like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like, what if we did this? Would that work? And then we prototype and it's good. But yeah, you have to look at everything out there. I mean, you have to be aware, unless you're a total indie guy, and you're like, art for art's sake, I'm going to be in a garage for the next 5 years, eating SpaghettiOs and making a game. But when you're talking about having a team of a few hundred people, spending, tens of millions of dollars, you do have to look at the market. You do have to be a business. You do have to look at the market. You have to be aware of what your competitors are doing. And, it's also important not to be too reactionary to that, right? Like, whether it's, if tomorrow or if, a month before we launched, WoW came out with a new player race that looked like one of ours, we would, there'd be some, again, the reactionary young guys that are like, oh my God, we gotta change this. But we would be like, no, this is our game. This is what is good for our game.
We double jump. We put double jump in the game because we thought that was fun.
Yeah,
we looked at other games.
We didn't put it in because we were like, WoW doesn't have double jump, so let's do it.
And this is how we'll beat them.
Yeah.
Well, I think, there's two things that are terrible to design. And again, we didn't do it.
Yeah.
But I guarantee, I've worked for a lot of companies. I know people work for other companies. There's plenty of people that were like, this is how we're going to beat WoW. Because that's how, if you say those things, that's how people give you more money to make the game.
Yeah. Right.
And the other thing is to turn around and say, there needs to be a certain hundreds of hours of content, so we are going to we want to make X amount of money, so there's the hundreds and hundreds of hours of content that we need, and like that's a publisher company to say it, and that's another terrible way to make an MMO that we didn't do.
Yeah,
right? So I think those are two things that other publishers and game companies do, but we did not do.
It's about feel and fun.
But at the same time, you have to a little bit at least consider, like, for instance, I'm sure in some of the discussions about making Wildstar, it was, okay, WoW is decaying, the WoW fan base is decaying. How can we capitalize on that? How can we meet their needs?
In all fairness, when we started making Wildstar, WoW was not decaying. It was growing. So it was not like WoW. When Carbine was founded, WoW wasn't even at 1.5 million subs, and so that grew over time. I think it was more. It was not the WoW is decaying. Hey, we could win those people back. It was more like the MMO industry after a while was in a lull, but that wasn't until the end of our development. So we had already had a lot of plans in place. But what we did do was say, hey, we like action games on the console, and WoW's not doing this. Other games aren't really doing it. At the time, other games weren't doing it. I know Terra and Guild Wars kind of have a little bit of that. And we're like, this would be cool to have in an MMO that isn't currently in an MMO, right? But the thing you do look at is make sure that your features have fundamentals that can't be replicated in competitors' products, right? For example, like, I'll say it, Warcraft can go and put player housing in their game.
Sure enough.
They absolutely can. We think our player housing is the best in the business right now.
It is the best in the business.
But tomorrow they could decide, hey, WoW's going to have player housing. There's nothing we can do about that. But there's no way that World of Warcraft could do the type of combat that we have. It's too big of a change for their combat system. They might be able to add little things here and there, but the fundamentals of our combat system that go throughout our whole game, whether it's PvP or raids or dungeons or just leveling through the content, like, they can't do that. They'd have to get make another game. And that's when we knew that we had something good, that it's not something that a competitor could just lop on because, oh, now they have this. And we have a lot of features like that. That doesn't mean that they're bad features, but we felt like paths and combat were definitely the ones where it's like, you need these from the start. Otherwise, you have to remake your entire game.
Yeah.
So I kind of go into the theming of your game. One review called Wildstar a bizarre mix of Star Wars, Firefly, Tolkien, and WoW.
You could have just stopped at bizarre mix and I would have.
I see the John Wayne mug and I hear about the things that are behind the camera that I can't see. What kind of influences were you directly considering when you made Wildstar?
Now I feel like I have to show you.
A lot of people ask us this, and I think the answer is actually fairly disappointing, because I think people expect the recipe of, let's take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we'll put it in the blender, and that is Wildstar. The real answer is we developed it in-house completely, wrote stories, did art, and then we iterated on what we liked about that. So we just threw out a bunch of ideas and we started latching onto things. And believe it or not, I know people will call BS on this. We didn't think of Firefly until we already had it, and we hired a person that was like, oh, this is like Firefly. Yeah. And I'll admit, I didn't watch Firefly before that moment. And I didn't even watch it then until it was like 10 or 15 people saying, yeah, this game's like Firefly. And I'm like, okay, I got to watch this show. And then I watched it and I was like, oh yeah, now it is kind of like Firefly.
Now, to be fair, I did take the entire content design team in a room and say, go watch every episode of this. because of that one scene I talked about earlier.
But that was after. That was. I mean, like, here's what I'll say, creative people out there. You're influenced by every single thing ever in your life, right? Like, I'm a child of the '80s, so there wasn't a lot of people talking about like, hey, watching TV is bad for you, and stuff like that. So every Saturday morning, every day after school, I was in front of the TV watching Transformers, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Dungeons and Dragons, Robotech, and I was reading X-Men, like literally I was pop culture. I was just saturated with pop culture, things that currently are still in pop culture, which is incredible that we haven't created anything new to replace this stuff, right? And I think you're just automatically influenced by all that, by every artist you ever liked their work, every movie you ever saw, I saw Star Wars when I was 2 years old, and I was a big Star Wars nut. I think you take all that, and you're just saying that subconsciously you're pulling what you like out of that, and you're just spitting it out in a different way. But we never really said, hey, let's do this. Now, we did say we tried to use touchstones so people would understand it. Like when we created the Granok Mail, we put together like these personality sheets, but we have to communicate that to somebody. So we'd write up, a description of personality, but then we'd have pop culture touchstones. So we'd be like Hellboy, the Thing from the Fantastic Four, just so people kind of get in their heads, oh, okay, this is what it's supposed to be. But we didn't start by going, hey, we need a character like Hellboy. We just said, hey, this is what the Granok is. We want this type of character. And then we kind of reverse engineered it.
And I'll say, just to piggyback on what Matt said about kind of the 80s deal, like when we talked about content, we talked about there is story in our game, right? It's a big story, and we try to roll it out at the end of the game because a lot of the people just blow through the leveling process because they want to get to the end. So we made sure that, like, let's tell the big bombastic story at the end. And then one of the things we refer to is that, like, the little mini stories you find throughout the gameplay. I also have 3 kids, and I have to make sure that I can get in there as a player who only has 2 hours, get in, play a storyline, get my items, feel like I can log off. That I actually accomplished something. We talked about making those smaller stories like an episode of The A-Team. You get in, an hour later, you're done. You're like, all right, that was good. And then maybe we bring back an enemy for an extra long two episode arc. But yeah, it's definitely,
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes with things, you have ideas in your head, like I want this character, this creature to shatter like the Centibite from Hellraiser. and it's so funny because like the art team, like I go, yeah, the Centibite, and they're like, what's the Centibite? And I was like, YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. Because YouTube, nobody would get any reference. Like again, I'm a child of the 80s. We have a lot of young people here that were born in the 90s and beyond, right? So like all my references, they're like, how do you know all this stuff? I was like, because all I did was watch TV, play video games, and read comic books.
Yeah, and God forbid, because I just had a conversation the other day, it lasted 2 hours, where I tried to explain to somebody why. I was like, yeah, it's like Slim Pickens.
I was moderating a panel with Skyda's with Skyda's Minecraft and some other young YouTubers. And one of the guys goes, yeah, I'm doing a parody video. You remember that old song, Take On Me? And I was like, and I just looked at him and I went, shut up.
Shut up now. Yeah.
So we'd mentioned earlier that MMO development is really fraught with a lot of difficulties because of the scale and the size. Was there ever a tipping point where you guys thought you might fail? Have you always felt like the product was going to come out? Or was there a point where you were like, we might not be able to pull this off?
You want an honest answer?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Probably like 3 or 4 times.
Probably.
Like I joke that Carbine was built on a leprechaun graveyard because there were definitely some moments there that we were like, okay, this is it. We're not going to make it past this hump. And, like in those moments, it always came down to the game. We'd put together something, the team would rally, put together something, and then it was like, okay, this is good. We have to make this.
And I think we were just too close to it, right? There's these times of despair, right? We had to sit down at one point in time and go, man, we're not going to be able to put 40 zones in the game, right? And we're like, we can't possibly launch the game without 40 zones. Like, no, don't see why we decided that number was a number that it had to be. And then we put out what we have today, and people comment like lunatics about how, oh my God, there's so much stuff to do. And had we all just given up at that point,
like there are certain, believe it or not, there's certain execs who, before we announced the game, not with the dev team, but with the executives and the publisher, the art style was very controversial, right? Like they questioned me at every moment of, is it too cartoony? Is it too colorful? Like, just because there wasn't a lot of other products out there that were like that. And, luckily we stuck to our guns on it. And because I was literally like, well, if we announce it and everybody hates it, I'll resign. I believe in it. And, when we announced it 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now at Gamescom in Germany, my boss came up to me and he was like, good call. He was like, I never truly believed in it until this moment, seeing how much people love it. And it became a thing that the press talked about, and, people say how beautiful it is and everything. And I know it's probably hard to believe because it's such a defining thing. When people think about our game, they think about the visuals on it, that at some point in time, we had the marketing team that didn't want to have the actual look of the game on the marketing. They wanted a more realistic, gritty look to try to fool players. And I was like, you think players are going to be fooled when they see that poster and then they go into the game and it's something completely different? And because it was a risk. Again, it's a risk like the MMO is a risk, right? That we're not doing something that is normally accepted. And, and to think back to those times, I thought, if there was a high level decision to shift the art style, the entire art team would have left the project.
Yeah.
And then it would have been done. Because at that point, starting over, hiring up a new team, so there's just a lot of things like that we didn't know. Like, we didn't know people were gonna even like the game or like our features until we announced. We just didn't know. You kind of work in a vacuum and you're like, hope the team likes it. So that's something, but you never know.
Combat was the same way. When we had the regular old, the old school WoW combat, no one wanted it. Everyone was too quiet about it. Nobody was talking about it. And when somebody finally came out and said, let's do this, something cool, and let's do it, again, executives were like, are you going to bet your job on this, right? Is this going to be the end of your career if we turn around and we had 25% of the game done and now we have to redo the entire bit we had finished so that you could have monsters that could actually fit in the space with telegraphs and that kind of dodging and rolling and a lot of movements that you're using a lot of the space. And so you're getting these positions where you're like, I'm all in, right? Because if we just didn't want to make another clone of every other MMO ever made.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a crazy ride. It's been, and we've been pretty open and honest about that. Yeah. That the first 3-4 years were a cluster F, right? But
we weren't making tools, so that was a good.
We were making the engine, making tools. We rebooted the IP a bunch. We redid the art style 2 times, and for the past 4 or 5 years, we've really started this game, and started running down the right path.
And I honestly, because you talked earlier about Eve and all that, and CCP, and again, I love Eve. I played Eve a while. Had we gone with a different publisher, had it not been NCSoft, who only makes MMOs,
Right.
that we probably would have got shut down a long time ago. Like, they had faith in us to pull this off.
It's weird because when you think about, several hundred people teams making a game, you don't think about people taking a stand and going, I'm staking my job on this. This is a creative decision we need to make. And it's funny because you go from, you talk about how you're thinking about doing it in a very gritty, realistic marketing style, and now everywhere there's a giant Chua coming down on your head and all the promos, in this super cartoony, slobbery, toothy thing. And I think those character decisions are what set the game apart for me. It might be that I'm a little bit of a jaded gamer and I see a lot of these things. So you guys making those decisions is what made the difference to me. And I hope that some bigger companies learn from these decisions and allow more creativity, because even in tiny differences like that, you get a character of the people making the game expressed in the final product. And I feel like games with more character have longer lifestyles or lifetimes and have the ability to speak to more people just because of their personality built into them.
I think, my hope is that, the perfect example of this is BioShock Infinite. Like, a great game, great IP, cool art style, had a very unique tone in the game space. And, when they announced, they had a lot of these cool, like, old-timey looking magazine covers and everything. And that was their thing. That was what defined them. And then when the box cover came out, and it's literally like the same box cover that every other game comes out, it didn't even have, the girl on the box cover or anything. And there was that whole community backlash of like, this is not this game. What are you guys doing? I think it's a shame that, like, people need to understand that you have to put what the game is. And I think what we're seeing now in the industry, and it's actually helped us a lot because, we're a big company, but we actually don't have the big budgets, marketing. Like, no one's going to, we can't spend $500 million on marketing like Activision can. And so we've done all of our cinematics in-house using a lot, mostly in-game assets, right? And that was a decision based upon our budgeting. But since we've been doing that, we've seen backlash on the big Blur trailers where the game looks nothing like the trailer. And you start to see the community and the gamers now, the proof is in the pudding. They want to see the game. And that's why I think Twitch and stuff is great because, like, you want to see a game in action. Everybody knows what, like, now where it's like, okay, announcement trailer. Okay, that's not the real thing. When's the real game going to be shown? I think there was a new game by Bethesda, the TF2 1900s TF2 game, Battlecry. I think it might be Battlecry. It's actually, I'm out of anything that's been announced, this is one of my most anticipated games right now because I think it's a great idea. And I was super excited and I watched the trailer and it was just this pre-rendered trailer that didn't even look like the screenshot that they put together that's stylized. And I was like, oh man, I gotta wait to see what this game is gonna be like because it's not the actual game, but I'm still excited for it. And I think that with marketing, you have these companies and these firms that make money by going and taking a brooding picture of a person and putting it on a poster with the logo. And it's not just in games; it's Hollywood too. If you want to watch a great documentary, I forget the name of it, but it's on Drew Struzman. It's on Netflix on streaming, and it's about how he used to craft these posters that actually sold the magic of the movie. And now they just Photoshop an actor into the posters, and it's a lost art. And it's just kind of like all these movie posters and marketing are super generic. And you're kind of seeing that in games too. Like we work with a lot of partners, and when you look at their portfolios, it's all the same stuff. It's like, you know, like it's like, okay, that's their thing that they do. And for us, it's like, we want you to do something different. And, you know, it's a multi-step process to get them to understand how to sell our game, and that we want it to look like our game.
Well, I think Twitch is one of these things that, you know, YouTube, Twitch, it's upsetting the apple cart, right? Whereas, you know, they have a playbook, right? These big, giant companies. And you're right, I would love to see them step out of the mold. But, you know, when you turn around and you go, hey, we've been pumping out games for the last 20 years, and we have a playbook that we've used for the last 20 years, and trying to turn around and saying, yeah, why wouldn't we want to talk to the people who are going to play the game?
Yeah.
I think that's insanity not to want to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I noticed, you know, I was at PAX East, and you had a Wildstar thing on every garbage can and taxi in the town, okay? And I was very impressed with your coverage, but will that really get you more support than having Good and Sevidus stream your stuff on Twitch?
I don't think so. I think it's two different things. I think one is awareness, and just so people are go, hey, what is that? Like, what is that creature on that thing? Right. And then you get to that next stage where they go to your website and they check it out. But if you don't have the support structure, I will argue that, again, and this is going to be something that someone will write down somewhere. Wildstar already has the best community in any MMO I've played in the last 10 years. It's without fail. I've just never seen the people that we talk to, the people in game that you talk to, right? I go in undercover, they don't know who I am, and I'm playing the game. I did it all throughout beta, and I would just chat with them and talk to them, and it wasn't that same kind of just, oh man, you just don't want to even log into the game anymore kind of vibe.
Well, I mean, it's super weird. You talk about PAX, and we go to PAX, and we'll sit there and we'll just talk to everybody, right? And you get fans going, oh my God, I'm talking to the product director, and we bullshit for like, you know, a half hour. It's not necessarily about, hey, this is the game and here's my marketing pitch. It's like, hey, what's cool at the show? What are you playing? And, you know, then we talk about the game and everything. And they're like, oh, you know, if you're not press, these developers over here, they won't even talk to you.
No, I mean,
you know, and it's just like, look, what are we doing this for? What are I think we're also very lucky because, you know, NCSoft is a publisher with understanding the long cycle of an MMO and what you actually have to create is an important part of it. But our marketing team as well, like, they let us be pretty raw. Like, we don't get a script, you know, like, we don't, like, you know, they don't really, like, nobody's in.
Yeah, there's no PR guy in.
I can say whatever I want. I can whatever and in trouble for it later. But you know, like, yeah, I mean, like, we just found out about this, you know, 2 days ago, and they're like, hey, can you guys do a stream? And we're like, sure.
Yeah.
And that was it. There was no briefing. It's like, you're going to talk about stuff, maybe a little bit about the game, maybe a little bit about playing games. And we're like, okay, whatever, you know. And I think that it's been a breath of fresh air. And I've had friends in the industry that work for other companies, and they're like, they go through like a week-long like PR training and get thrown all these hard questions and are trained how exactly to answer them and deflect and all that stuff. And I'm like, look, we know what not to talk about, you know, but we just want to talk about the game like it really is.
Well, I don't want to work at that company. I want to be able to talk about the game. And now I understand. Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey, there's a press embargo. We want people to cover blah, blah, blah. I get that. Right. But I don't ever want to get into a position where a guy can come up to me, and this has happened. It happened at PAX, or a guy came up to me and said, hey, Mike, I've listened to your shtick, and, you know, I'm a casual raider. And I want to know if the best gear for raiding in the game comes from these 40-man raids. How, as a casual raider, I'm going to get that stuff? And I got to tell him, you're not. That's not our game. And it's never going to be as long as I'm here.
And what Mike didn't have to do is convince him that there was something in the game that would allow him to do that so the guy would buy a copy.
No, I don't care.
Right? It's like, no, that's not in the game. You're not the audience for raid.
Right, but I did get to tell him we have 5-man group content, 20-man group content, 40-man. We have PCPs. We have so much stuff that you'll be fine. And he accepted it. He wasn't thrilled to death about it, but he accepted it, and I didn't get browbeaten or yelled at by PR or marketing because I just spoke the truth, right?
Yeah.
That's what I love about the studio.
Yeah. Well, and I think from gauging my audience for this show, that's one of the reasons why I do the format that I do. And we're going to wind this up in just a second because we've been going really, really long. But like, I think that there is something to be said for having an intimate discussion with the people who are designing your games. And I think people want to know who's designing their games and see their lives and find out that they're three-dimensional people and not like puppets of a press department. And I think that there's something very appealing to that, and that's why I feel the people who listen to this show continue to listen to it. I have two more questions. Actually, I have three, but I'm only going to ask two of them.
Take your time. You're done.
The subscription MMO. Do you feel like that was taking a gamble? Do you feel like it's an endangered species? Was there a decision at some point in time that you made that was kind of instrumental in sticking with the subscription model?
I think it was contentious for sure.
Well, from the beginning, here's what happened. From the beginning, we designed the game to be a subscription model. And then at a certain point, so we were in our heads, we were a subscription, and we were designing the game around that, right? Because I don't feel like it's a switch that you can just, oh, we're going to go free to play.
Okay,
turn it on. You have to fundamentally design the game to be free to play or subscription or whatever else, right? And I think there was a time where we had to make the final call, where we just analyzed every single model out there just to make sure, hey, this is the time where we can't go back and change all the stuff. What are we going to do? And to be honest, I think that you talked earlier about those times where we thought we would fail. There was a time where if we knew that if somebody made that call at the play, that we're just throwing a Band-Aid on this thing and calling it done, right? Yeah. And so we wanted to make sure that, like, once we decided we're going to be a subscription, that's when it was like, okay, we need to make sure that our game's even better and has more value post-launch. Like, I think that's when the post-launch and the cap level conversations really started coming into play, is that nobody's going to pay for a game where you could just get to max level and do nothing.
Well, that's the thing, right? Subs, over the last 10 years, you got a sub, you subbed for the pleasure of being able to play their game, right? And the way it was, and maybe that was fine back then, and then the free-to-play stuff came on, you're like, oh, I can try it out. If I don't like it, I can walk away from it. But if I do like it, there's this kind of gimmicky thing on how they're going to make money. I don't think it's dead, and I think our game is going to, I don't want to say it like this because it sounds so PR bullshit, but ours is going to revitalize it, because all of a sudden people are going to realize two things. One, if you're going to put out a sub, you got to give them value. Right? We have an expansion's worth of content we're going to roll out over the next year. And that was a decision we made years ago to do, because we wanted to make sure that that's the point of paying your $15 a month fee, is that, oh, well, hey, if they're not giving me what I want, I'm going to go try some free-to-play thing. Right. It's like, well, we're giving you the content that other game companies expected you to just hold on to, and they'll give it to you 18 months.
What I really don't get about the free-to-play, I play some free-to-play games, but what I really don't get is if you want every single thing, and this isn't just MMOs, this is like DLC, all that stuff, right? Do people not realize that they are actually paying more for all this stuff? Like, at the end of the day, they're probably paying a good deal more for the content and like unlocking races and character slots and unlocking dungeons.
Well, they did a review of that. Somebody did a review when SWTOR went, and they said, look at what you're paying for all the stuff broken out, or what you would have just paid if you continued $50 a month, and it was greatly increased. But I think it helped because with a free-to-play, you can get a larger audience to try your game, and I understand that. But I'm hoping when people play our game that we'll have the word of mouth, right? Because that's the thing, is I've been saying it, and I'll keep saying it. Proof's in the pudding. Prove me wrong, right? And it's expensive. I said it when we were in beta because anybody can get into it, but I wasn't wrong. I mean, look at our subs. Look at where we're at. Look at where we are 5 days after head start.
I think when you look at subs, you got to look at more than just MMOs. Like I look at Netflix, right? And I feel like there's a better value paying $15 a month for Netflix than, just buying DVDs. I don't buy DVDs or Blu-ray anymore because Netflix and Amazon are giving me enough content to where I could watch something pretty much anytime I want. And it's something I want to watch. When Netflix first started their streaming, it was all pretty much crap.
Right.
Like it was like normal cable. Like there's 1,000 things on and nothing you want to watch. They've really done a good job now about putting out content, especially with their new shows like House of Cards and Orange is the New Black and everything, and now they have a Marvel deal, right? And it's like, oh my God, I would just buy Netflix now for that, not just because I get DVDs in the mail, right? And I think that, like we said, I don't think the average consumer out there is against paying subscriptions because that's what we do. We pay cell phone subscriptions. We pay, like Amazon, Netflix, everything. I mean, like the big. You were talking about the loot bag of the month, that type thing.
Loot Crate.
That's a subscription, right? And so I think it comes down to value, and I think what people are burned about is that MMOs of recent past haven't had that value if they had the subscription model.
Well, there's one other model that, like, for instance, my wife and I, we killed our WoW subscriptions because we weren't playing enough to justify it. We were able to get in a couple hours every couple of weeks, and it wasn't like there's another audience there, and that is the people that are busy. and I really I love Guild Wars 2. I love their model. I am happy to give them money when I want something else from the game because they aren't billing me when I'm not playing.
Right.
And I put it down for a couple of months. And then when I picked it back up, I dug into it really heavy, but I didn't feel like I needed to do anything different in how I pay for it to take that break and then come back. And then another example would be the Neverwinter game, which some friends of mine and we got together once a week and played it. And then our lives got busy and we couldn't play anymore. And I don't have to be afraid of maintaining a subscription. There is one other model, but that might be the exception and not necessarily the rule. But I do question whether the subscription model, and maybe it's just my personal view, whether the subscription model has a permanent lifetime. And then, okay, we're going to move on to one last question. This is from Maz Extreme Beyond in Australia. He's wondering are you guys going to do a Mac thing?
I have a really inappropriate answer, but no, we're not looking into the Mac thing right now. Right now we're just focused on making sure the game is stable and fixing all the bugs. I mean, part of that whole subscription talk is that we have a whole team of developers we have one team that's working on new content. Yeah. And a whole nother team fixing every bug. Like these guys, since launch, even before launch, have been here 24/7.
Yeah, it really sucks to be in the live team.
Yeah, and just fixing little things that pop up, and because like if we have a bug in the game or something that's a game breaker, we need to fix it as soon as possible. So we haven't really had that serious discussion. I think that probably like maybe in a month or two when the game is stabilized and everything.
Yeah, don't count us out on it.
We could start having that. I mean, I know in the course of development, right? There's a lot of passion projects, right? Yeah. I think at one point, one guy started working on a Linux thing. At one point, someone was working on controller support. But never officially sanctioned by the company of like, hey, let's do this and make it a thing.
So we can't officially announce it.
Yeah. So like I think there's a desire as just a game developer to move on to the next shiny thing and to abandon that thing that you worked on for a long time. And we're doing our best to make sure that we don't just say, oh, we're making a new game or we're making a new expansion right away, like that we want to make, again, we're a sub-based game. We need to make sure that value is there, that anything that comes up in the game that we are able to fix and make a better player experience.
Oh, hey, to mention it, because I forgot to say it when we were talking about the sub thing. You're right. I'm not sure if sub's going to last, but I think the fact that we added cred, which is kind of like Eve's Plex, where you could earn money in game whenever you play and then just go and buy cred and other player can sell you cred so you get free game time. I think that I don't think we would have been as successful as we will be without that.
Right.
Well, okay, gentlemen, I think we should wind it up. We've been talking a very long time, and I have taken up too much of your precious development. I mean, this is launch week. You guys probably have a lot going on. And
I mean, it's funny. Launch has gone pretty smooth.
Yeah.
We were expecting. I mean, sure, we have people that are here 90 day fixing little things, but I think having launched a bunch of different MMOs, we were expecting a much bumpier ride, and so we've mostly been talking about the new content coming out.
New patches.
Yeah.
We just, again, I think it has to go back to, though, honestly, is the team, right? WoW guys, Warhammer guys, 38 Studios guys, where they didn't launch one, but they got pretty close.
Yeah.
City of Heroes guys. I mean, you name an MMO from the last 10 years, and we've got guys that made those games. So I think that was very, very much the reason why we had such a smooth launch. It wasn't like this was our first. Yeah. Even though it was our first MMO for Parkman Studios, it wasn't like our staff. This wasn't their first radio. So.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, gentlemen, Matt, Mike, I hope to have you guys on again. I'd love to talk about how the game evolves. I kind of wanted to dig into where you guys want to take the game and some other ideas, but we will save that for another time. I did get an email from Psycho Chickens who had a question for me and Spencer, but since Spencer isn't here, I don't really feel good about taking your thing. So we'll wait until Spencer comes back to talk about it. Also, once again, please support the show. Go pick up Loot Crate, lootcrate.com/Wes Wilson. Go pick up Wildstar. It's, like I said, it is the MMO I have been excited about, and were I not MMO'd out in my general life, I would be playing incessantly right now. But after talking with you guys some more and hearing some more about your company, and I think some people in the audience expressed this as well, I am more interested in picking it up, if for nothing better, just on general principle, to support you guys.
Thank you.
By the way, you could hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Matt Makarski, pretty easy.
At Dapper Donatelli.
Okay.
Ask any questions you want.
If you could find us, just send us questions. I'm constantly fielding questions from the fans.
And I've noticed that about your company. Tony Ray, who I met at PAX East, has been very accessible, and every single person I've interacted with has maintained a very accessible personality and has tried to be out there for the people who are playing the game. It's kind of a unique game dev culture for an MMO. And I'm impressed. Everybody I know who has played the game has been impressed. I have heard no bad things from anyone other than, I can't afford a subscription. So, so that's the questions. By the way, next week, I have some more local game devs from here in Huntsville. I have Charlotte and Jesse of Pixel Are You Squared, which is a independent game that got some really amazing press at PAX East. And their game is actually on sale this week on Indie Game Stand. So if you go, and I'll provide a link in the show notes, excuse me, if you want to pick up their game, it is in very alpha. But it is a very playable alpha. So I will provide a link to that in the show notes. You can check that out, and they'll be our guests next week. We will be recording an episode next week, so please stick around and join us in the live stream. And gentlemen, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for everything.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
You've been listening to Core Elements, exploring gaming one element at a time, a listener-supported podcast. See the show notes or get more information at coreelementshow.com or leave us a voicemail at 256-763-0455.